Oh my God. I am so excited to be doing this with you, Hazel. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast. It doesn't even feel like a scary interview like we talked about earlier before we started recording because you're one of my really good friends. So thank you so much for coming on here.
Yeah, I'm so stoked to be here. I was like waiting for you to meet. I'm like, when is Amanda gonna ask me to be on the podcast? Like, if she doesn't, it's like she doesn't ask me. Like, I knew you didn't. I didn't even give you a chance. I messaged as soon as you
Yep.
announced that you had a podcast. I was like, I'm booking in my slot.
Excuse me, book me, please.
Yeah, I was like, hey Amanda, let's set a date to chat or what?
I love that. And it's so funny because you and we video chat definitely like monthly. We have check-ins and we're constantly talking over social media, but you and I have never met in person, which breaks my heart because I feel like we would be besties in real life, but we're besties on the internet. So,
I am still waiting for you to introduce me to Chick-fil-A.
Oh my gosh.
And it's going to happen one day. I will get myself to Orlando and we can finally hang out in person.
I mean, honestly, I might have a better chance coming to you these days. I don't know. The world's kind of crazy right now, but I do.
Welcome anytime.
Right? Well, that's the goal. Kevin and I definitely want to take a trip over there. So definitely come see you.
Little Euro vacay.
Hey. All right. So I want to give you, Hazel, a moment just to introduce yourself to anyone out there that's listening that does not know who you are. If they have been following me on social media, they should know who you are because you are riddled all within my platforms because you and I have partnered before and we're just such big supporters of each other, I feel like. So
yeah, definitely.
I feel like the consensus is, at least in our little corner of the internet, is you can't know Hazel without Amanda and vice versa. Like people know that like our friendship exists. They just know that it's there.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, if you are not familiar with me or my story, my name is Hazel McBride. I am, as you might be able to tell from my accent, even though it's a bit dulled down, I'm originally from Glasgow in Scotland, so I'm from Outlander land. Although not all of the men look like Jamie Fraser, let me tell you.
Oh my gosh.
That's definitely
that show.
So yeah, I grew up in Scotland and had a dream of one day becoming a killer whale trainer, which by some miracle I made happen by the age of 22, which is insane to me. And I worked as a killer whale trainer for 5 years. I worked at Laurel Park in Tenerife for 2, and then I worked at Marineland on Sea for 3. And I always thought that killer whales was going to be end goal for me. And what I've definitely realized is life is much more complicated than that. And I ended up falling in love with a Dutchman and found myself living in the Netherlands, which I never thought would happen. But yeah, along the way I did, lots of different things, and very similar to you, Amanda, I have my finger in a lot of pies. We're both type 3s. We're like, this is done. What can we do now? And what can we do now?
Always searching for the next dream, next big goal, which is funny when I think about it, like hearing you say that I thought killer whales was the end goal. Exactly with me. That was exactly where I thought too. And now looking back, I'm like, that's funny to me because I'm constantly looking for the next thing. So it's just funny in my mind that I thought that I would stop there.
It's crazy that we're such goal setters and achievers. But the whole time I was like, every decision I made from the time I was about 15 to 22 was a decision of how to get me closer to being a killer whale trainer. And that is how you achieve something. You do need a hell of a lot of dedication and focus to make it happen. So, when I was choosing part-time jobs, I was like, I'm going to be a lifeguard because then I can get CPR and first aid and all of that. I'm going to get scuba certified. I'm going to do this or that. And I always thought, once I'm a killer whale trainer, my life is just going to be perfect and it's going to be amazing and everything will stop. And I have really learned that life does not work like that. And there's nothing wrong with being an achiever or wanting to have goals and dreams and wanting to have something to motivate you. But you really need to do a lot of work in figuring out, okay, how do I want to achieve this, but also still be happy in the present and with what I have now?
Yes, I think that is such a big thing that a lot of people don't learn until later in life. And I think that segues us into the topic that I was hoping we could touch on is, that I've talked to you a lot about my identity and trying to find where I place my identity. And for so long, it was in being a marine mammal trainer or being a zookeeper or just being involved with animals. And I made the decision to leave the field and pursue, like we said, other goals, other dreams that I wanted to achieve. And really recently, within the last year, you made that same decision too. I would love for you to touch on that and just kind of the process of having this dream and achieving it, but then making the decision, okay, but what's next?
Yeah, it was a process. So, I mean, I was very lucky at Marineland. When I was at Laurel Park, I was on a 2-year contract. So I worked that 2-year contract, and then I wanted to leave there for a multitude of reasons, but I wanted to stay with killer whales. So the only other option I had was working at Marineland on Sea, which is the only other facility in Europe that has killer whales. So, the marine mammal field is small anyway, but the killer whale field is even smaller.
Yep.
So I very luckily already knew the head trainer, and we were chatting, and he wanted to hire someone that had experience already. So it was just natural that I went there. And I got so lucky at Marineland. Like, the team I was working with were all fantastic humans. Marineland was so supportive of, my other dreams, like writing my book and stuff. They were so supportive of all of that, which made it so much harder to leave.
Yeah.
So if you guys probably don't know this, but I was in a long distance relationship for 4 years. I met my current fiance in Tenerife 4 years ago, randomly in a nightclub. Like,
I love it.
What are the chances? What are the chances of that happening? But we did the distance for 4 years because I didn't want to leave the Wales yet, and he didn't want to leave his home and family. And one thing that's really hard is you can't say that someone's dream is bigger than someone else's. That's something that took me a very long time to understand, is that just because my dream was working with killer whales, his dream of living close to his family and owning a house and having a steady job was no less important or valid than mine. So we kind of had to come to an agreement where we were like, okay, I'm not going to leave the Wales until I'm ready, until I want that future with him here, because that's not a future we could have in France for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
Money being the big one. So there were a lot of factors that kind of came into my decision making to leave. I think I have a video going into detail on it on my YouTube. So if people are interested, we can chat about that another time. But yeah, being a killer whale trainer I always identified as that. So if we're going really far back, when I was at university, in one of my psych classes, we were asked to write down 3 descriptors of exactly who we were.
Ooh.
And people were writing down things like mother, daughter, student. Number 1 on my list was future killer whale trainer.
Naturally.
That is how powerfully I identified with being a killer whale trainer when I was 18. And I wasn't even a killer whale trainer yet. That is almost unhealthy to a certain level. What would that have done to me if I hadn't achieved it? How obsessed would I have become with making it happen, or how disappointed in myself, or what kind of identity crisis would I have gotten myself into if it hadn't what? But yeah, I made it happen, and I became a killer whale trainer and built a brand around killer whales, around writing a book about killer whales, and I became very well known. Well, to me, very well known.
Well, yeah.
As a killer whale trainer, my Instagram username used to be Hazel Orca Trainer. That was me, and it was how so many people viewed me and how I viewed myself. And so when it came time for me to kind of not only announce that I was leaving, I was terrified to announce that I was leaving, because I was like, what are people going to
I remember you messaged me and were like, hey, this is happening and it's not going to be for a couple months, but I'm panicking and I just need to tell someone that'll understand. And little did you know that I was literally going through the same thing of thinking about leaving too. And so
I know.
it was it was neat to see how gracefully you handled it and you eased your community into it. And like, we're dropping little Easter eggs and hints here and there. And it wasn't like this big shock, but that brings me to my question is, do you think having that social media platform helped you with that transition? Or do you think that almost made it harder because you felt possibly that you owed them an explanation, where an average person on the street would just be like, well, left my job, going to a new job, you know?
Oh yeah, I felt a huge sense of responsibility, and I still do. I still feel a huge sense of responsibility to this community because I became known for being the person that would talk about these things, that would address issues, that would stand up for trainers. And I wanted to make it very clear that while I wasn't working as a trainer anymore, that wouldn't stop. And it hasn't, you know, and thankfully my community still resonate with that. But I did feel a huge sense of people are really going to judge me for leaving because I made it look perfect. And everything with the whales was, you know, my life with the whales was amazing. Like every day at work, every moment with Wiki, I don't regret a second. I didn't hate a second of it. I loved every minute, every single minute. So it was easy for me to share that with people and be like, look how incredible this is. Best job ever. I love my life. Like, this is great. And because it was, and every part of that was true. But I didn't show, you know, the late night Skype calls where I was crying myself to sleep and missing my family. And, you know, I didn't talk about it, but I didn't share it either. So people got a very one-sided view of what my life was. And while they knew that I was with Paul, my fiance, they didn't really see anything other than the fun stuff when we were together. And I think it was just like assumed by a lot of people because a lot of people would like to be a killer whale trainer. Yeah. You know, of course I would choose that. And I did choose that for 4 years of our relationship. I chose the whales over him. And, you know, I have to give a shout out to him for being so incredibly patient. You know, I mean, if it had been the other way around, I don't think I would have been so understanding.
That's the thing. Yeah. Shout out to the fiance and husband of our friendship here, because Kev is the same way. I remember distinctly there's a fight that we had right as I was thinking about leaving the field. And he was like, I just have this feeling that no questions asked, you would choose the animals over me. And I was like, yeah. And I said it out loud and I was like, well, yeah. And then I heard it and I was like, oh my God, like I have been married to this man for then 5 years, in a relationship 7 years. And I was like, I don't know that that's how that's supposed to be. Like, and that's what got me thinking like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. My priorities might be a little twisted, maybe. I don't know. And that's when my crisis started of like, oh my gosh.
So much of it for trainers, especially, and keepers as well, we're taught to be that way.
Yeah.
Like, to get into this field, it's so competitive, it's cutthroat, you need so much experience and you need to dedicate so much of your life to it and sacrifice so much for it that it becomes a part of you. You identify as it, as the job becomes part of you more than just part of your life. So then when you go forward, it's also encouraged at work for it to be your life.
For you to make decisions for your job instead of your social life. And yeah,
you're expected to give up so much, to work insane hours. And we do it because we love the animals. Of course we do. But it is to an extent unhealthy because you do get to the point where, I mean, Paul never asked me that, but I would say it. I was like, if people ask me who do I love more, Wiki or Paul, I can't answer. I still can't answer that. But at that point, I was like, well, your answer is that I've been choosing her for years over him.
Yeah.
So, and then eventually I did choose him.
Yeah.
But to me, it's not about a choice. It's not about one or the other. It's just a progression. It's not like I'm choosing between two things that are impossible. It's just, this has happened and I've been blessed to have these goals in my life, and now it's time for me to move on and grow and be more than just a killer whale trainer.
Yes.
I always have been.
Yes. And that's the thing. So when I was in the process of leaving the field, that's what got me back into therapy, because I was having the biggest identity crisis of my life, which I thought initially was, oh my gosh, I'm not a killer whale trainer anymore. But really, the real identity was, I don't think I'm going to work with animals anymore, because I was able to at least hold on to some little portion of, oh, I'm still in the animal field when I went from marine mammals to zookeeping. But when she was talking to me and she's like, we did an exercise and she's like, write down adjectives that describe you. And she's like, Amanda, personally, I think you working with animals is the least interesting thing about you. Like, that's just your job. And it's cool that that's your job. But say you were a librarian or a garbage man, like that would be something we would touch on and we would explore all other avenues of you. And that is the moment for me that I was like, huh. Oh,
that's so amazing that you say that, because that was a huge problem for me, is that I felt like I wasn't worth anything without it.
Yeah.
Because I had built so much success. For me, success was selling books, being, a successful author, lecturing at universities, coaching other aspiring marine mammal trainers. And all of that was because I was a killer whale trainer. All of that came from that. And people were turning up at group things to hear me speak because I was a killer whale trainer.
The credibility behind it. Right.
Yeah. And it terrified me, thinking I'm not going to be a killer whale trainer anymore. So no one is going to care about me and no one is going to care about what I have to say. And, we all have our own issues. We should all be in therapy.
Oh,
but,
yes.
I have a horrible, horrible tendency to just want to be liked. I just I have severe abandonment issues and I just need people to like me. So I was so fearful of telling the following that I had built, who I was going to need going forward, similarly to you with the social media stuff, with the branding, with the business. I was going to need my community more than ever. And I was just terrified that the moment I wasn't a killer whale trainer anymore, they were going to turn their backs on me.
And did they?
No. All of you amazing people listening, you all stuck with me and supported me. And, I think a lot of people learned things. And I know a lot of current and former trainers really resonated with a lot of what I was going through and figuring it all out and writing about it and talking about it. And I can wholeheartedly say that I am the happiest in my life that I have ever been right now, because I have a whole life.
Yes.
Whereas when I was with the whales, I had part of my life was amazing, but I was missing so much of it too.
I think that's the most common question is that I get asked is it's that first step that's so hard. And they're like, but what do I do? What if? And honestly, in my personal opinion, and I know you agree with this too, is if I could have told myself, like past self, anything, it would be do it sooner. Because just like you, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm the most actual healthy person I've ever been too, because I don't feel torn in all these directions. And for me personally, wanting to be this killer whale trainer and marine mammal trainer, in my mind, I was like, I'm going to live alone because there's no way another person in the world could love me enough for me to be this dedicated, because I knew in my brain at 18 that I was going to have to make decisions that weren't going to be fun and skip social events and do crazy things because it was so competitive. And I was like, either I'm going to find the perfect person that is like, yeah, you do you, or I'm just going to be alone and I'm going to be okay with that. And I happened to find Kevin, but through dating him and being married to him, I really realized, there's that natural shifting of priorities. And when you do find someone that you love, it just makes sense, And so I'm not going to say that I left the field for him, but Kev, you were worth it.
I mean, I don't know if I would go so far as saying I wish I could have done it sooner.
And it's different for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if there was anything that I could wish is that I'd met Paul later.
Okay.
If I could have met Paul when I was at Marineland, so that I would then have gone 4 years in a long distance relationship, so I could have had more time with the whales. That would have been great.
Mm-hmm.
But there was never a moment in my mind where I wasn't going to be with him. Like from as soon as we met and we started doing the distance, for both of us, we were very much committed into this distance is going to work because we're going to be together at the end of it. It doesn't matter how long it takes. So, you know, that was difficult, and it had its own challenges and its own problems, but like we're not perfect. Like, no, I don't want anyone thinking any relationship is perfect. We all have our own issues, but for me, the really important thing was I cannot leave the Wales too soon, because if I do, then I'll resent Paul.
Yes. I love that you brought that up, and take us through that process, because while you're making these decisions for Hazel and Paul, you had to make sure that you were also making them for Hazel, for Paul.
Exactly.
You know?
No, definitely. And again, I'm so lucky to have such an understanding partner, because he never asked me to leave. You know, he never gave any ultimatums of, you know, I'm only going to do this for one more year, or I'm only going to do this until then. It was very much, I trust you that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, that you're actually going to move at some point.
Yep.
But it was very much in my mind of, I can't move until I'm ready, because if I move too soon, then I will massively regret it, and I will always be thinking, what if? But there were a lot of things that kind of went into my final decision, and I made my final decision a year before I left, and it still took me a full year to like make that cut. So in October of 2019, my gran died, and that was a huge blow for me. I was raised by a single mother, and she was basically my second parent. So it hit me very hard. And it was in that moment where I was like, I cannot live so far away from family anymore. I need to see my family more. Lol, pandemic, haven't seen them in 2 years. I haven't seen them since my grand's funeral.
That's the thing with you saying that date. I was like, holy moly. Then the pandemic hit months later, and here we are in 2021.
Yeah. So I knew that something needed to change. Like, I couldn't keep living so far away on my own. I was like, I need to either be with my family or be with Paul. Luckily, I made the second one happen.
Yeah.
But also, you know, when I looked into like my future, when I was visualizing it, and I thought, okay, if I stay as a killer whale trainer and I leave Paul, okay, I'll be fine. Like, I'm a strong, independent woman.
Yep.
I love killer whales. But I was also like, okay, 5 years from now, would I still want to be living in a studio apartment in the south of France, barely making rent? No,
probably not.
Like, absolutely. I still don't want to live that far away from family. So I was like, do I sacrifice a full and happy future with the man that I love more than anything in the world, where I can be successful on my own with my business, with whatever I choose to do, because I'm that kind of person. I'll make it work.
Literally, you can do anything because you will be successful at everything you do, Hazel.
And that doesn't just go for me. Like, I want women everywhere to realize that. Like, we are all so talented in our own different ways that, you know, if you really dedicate yourself to pretty much anything, you can make it work.
Yep.
So I just realized, okay, if I stay and I leave Paul, I'll be with the whales for a few more years. That's great. But what comes after that? So I chose the future that I knew was going to make me the happiest and the most fulfilled.
It's so powerful. So powerful. And I'm so happy.
I mean, I'm making it sound like it was such like an easy, like.
No, I know.
But there was a lot of like breakdowns and crying to my mom and to Paul and to my supervisor and to the whales. And like, even when I handed in my notice, and Marineland requires you to give 2 months, which is, I don't know if that's a French law, but you need to give like a crap ton of notice, which was also a blessing, because then it kind of allowed me to just like soak in
and process. Yep.
Yeah, it was really a blessing. But when I handed in my letter, I was just in floods of tears, and the whole day felt like an out-of-body experience. And as much as I knew it was the right choice, there was so much of me that was like, this feels wrong. This feels wrong. Like, everything in me, obviously that part of me that just identifies as this is who you are, you cannot say goodbye to who you are, was just screaming at me in my brain of, this shouldn't be happening. And I felt so conflicted. Like, that day, the day of handing in my notice, was harder than my last day.
Wow. Because
100%
that
hard.
was the day that it was one thing to make the decision in your head, and then another thing to tell Paul about the decision and start to tell like other people within the community. But the moment you like physically made it public by handing it in is huge. But even then, you didn't announce it on social media then.
Not yet.
Nope. So you did this progression, which I think is great because, again, you and I are so similar in the way that we think. And that completely makes sense in my brain. So I'm like, all right, the least amount of collateral damage as possible.
It was damage control. It was
damage control. It's so like the marketing PR side of us, which we have learned to do with running our platforms. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to slowly ease people into this, ease them into the idea. And I watched you start to bring in your body positivity photos and bring in some lifestyle content and other books that maybe had killer whales and nature in them, but you started writing fiction books instead of just about killer whales, and so I loved
I started talking a lot more about Paul.
Yes.
I spoke a lot more about that side of my life that I had kept very quiet about.
You're like, hey, fall in love with this man so you're not mad at me for wanting to love him and pursue him.
I mean, have you seen him? Have you seen that man?
He is fabulous. Oh my gosh. Goodness. He seems incredible.
No, I started sharing a lot about like how hard I was like so hard living here without him, and I miss my family, and I spoke so much about it, and to the point where people were messaging me like, are you leaving? Like, what's this all about? And even though I had done a lot of kind of tailoring to that announcement, and my God, I must have changed that caption at least 50 times, like to try and get, and it's awful that I felt the need to explain myself to this extent, but like I did the caption, I did stories, and I filmed a full YouTube video explaining in detail why I left. I didn't owe that to anyone.
No.
I shouldn't owe that to anyone. But I still felt the need to justify every single decision because I felt like I was letting so many people down. And I still, I was very lucky, after that announcement, 99% of my following were so supportive and left comments being like, amazing, can't wait to see what you do next. Like, you did it, you achieved the dream, that's fantastic. But I still had some people being like, we're only here for the killer whales. Like, that's what people want to see. Like, why would you leave? Like, or kind of backhanded, like, I understand why you did it, but I wouldn't.
Oh.
Which was still hard because you always focus on the negative comments way more than the positive comments. But at the end of the day, I just have to remind myself, like, my life is my life. I'm not gonna live myself. I'm not gonna live my life for other people. I want people to, like, I love inspiring people and motivating people and showing everyone that you can make an impossible dream happen. And I've never stopped doing that. I have enough killer whale photos to last me until I'm like 40. Like, I took so many photos before. Like, I love it. How many photos I have of the whales that I haven't shared yet. Like, I'm always going to be an advocate for the field. I'm always going to try and make it better. I'm always going to be on the side of trainers forever. But I also want to inspire people just in general as well and share more of my life and more of who I am without that. Because I was so many things before I was a killer whale trainer. And I'm so many things after it. And I was still so many things with it. I just didn't realize it.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that so much, Hazel. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So as far as moving forward, what big dreams do you have? Tell me, and maybe you have some of them in the process, so you don't have to share any of that, but tell me what's on the horizon.
How long do you have? Oh, God. I mean, I love doing social media. At this point, I don't make direct income from social media yet. I would love to. I support so many influencers like yourself that do. Like, I think it's great. I use social media as an indirect source of income. So I, direct people to my books and my YouTube, et cetera, which I make money from. Yeah. And I don't think any women listening, do not be afraid to talk about money. Do not feel embarrassed about talking about money, and also know your worth. You're very good at talking about that, Manda. Like, I have been watching and listening.
I owe it to my therapist, honestly. I'm just like regurgitating the words that she like pushes into my brain, and I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, I believe it. Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, so for like a year, almost a year before I left, I started coaching, and I started building my coaching business, which is just so fulfilling and so amazing to watch aspiring trainers. Because when I was younger and I was in Scotland, there's no trainers around. Like, there's no cetaceans in human care at all. So like, I didn't know where to get the information or what to do. So if I can make that process any easier for anyone, then I absolutely will, because I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't have to step on other people to get to where you are. Like, you should all just rise each other up. And if there is one thing that I could eradicate in this field, it's the competitiveness. Like, seriously, can we all just get over it already and realize that there's enough space for everyone?
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
As long as there's animals that need to be cared for, there's going to be jobs. Like, can we please just start supporting each other? But that's a topic for another time. And I've been so blessed with my mentees. And, you know, when I was still working at Marineland, it was still small. It was just like a couple of people a week and not much. And then when I left, I had like a good 6 months where I was self-employed, which was fantastic. And I got to expand that business, and it's kind of grown so much that now I'm back in full-time work. I'm really struggling.
Yeah.
on top of it. But it's amazing. And I've been so blessed to have managed to coach 6 people this year into their internships, their first internships. And
oh my goodness.
And watch people go from not having done internships to all the way to paid positions. And it's just so amazing to, not that I'm saying that it's all down to me, you know, they've done so much work, you know, individually, but for me, it feels like I'm giving something back to this community. Is it weird to say that when you're getting paid for it?
No, because and my reasoning for wanting to help out future trainers too, the same is I can't guarantee that the field will be around the next 10, 15 years if there aren't people that know how to get into it. Because like you said, that information is so privileged and private, and people are so competitive about it. And it's like, I want these animals to be cared for. So I did it. Therefore, I want to share what I did to do it, you know? And I don't think it's crazy for you to say that at all, because you are an expert in that field. So why wouldn't you share that information? You know?
Yeah, very true. Very true. But after leaving Marineland in October last year, I focused a lot on the coaching business and growing it, and then started working on my 3rd novel.
Yes. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, I was wondering. So in my mind, Ocean's Daughter, Earth's Mother, will there be a 3rd in that series?
Yeah.
Or 4th?
It's a trilogy.
Okay. Because in my mind, I'm like, all right, the next one's going to be fire. Because I'm like, water, earth, fire. That's the next one.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a 3rd.
Okay, good.
Someone, actually, one of my readers messaged me asking what the title of the next book is going to be. And I was like, girl, I don't even know. Like, I have no idea. Like,
that's amazing.
I've been trying to find the right title for like a good year, and I don't know. So we'll see what happens. I do know what the cover is going to look like, though.
Okay.
And obviously, I know a little bit about what's going to happen in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so exciting and so fulfilling to see my books on bookshelves and see people reading about characters that I've created, because, you know, I Still Believe was my first book, and it was about the whales. And, you know, I know why people wanted to read that, but it was still a nonfiction. So I was writing about things that I knew about and things that had happened. But with fiction, I love it so much because I just get to create. Like, I get to create worlds and characters and scenarios, and, you know, I genuinely feel like my characters are real people.
I love that.
I wish I could just sit in a room and like have drinks with Riva and Alex, because I know that we would just have like the best time.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, books are still coming. I'm still writing, and, you know, I've got a fiction book coming out about the whales
Mm-hmm.
after summer, which I've started writing. I actually wanted to send you a little snippet of it to ask you if it was making sense.
Oh my gosh, I would be honored. I was gonna say all of your books are on my bookshelf back there. You can't see it, my mic's in the way, but I have my own little like Hazel fan club section where I'm like,
thank you. Who's your favorite character? If you had to choose between Riva, Em, and Alex, who's your favorite?
Riva.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Alex.
No. No.
Yeah. I feel like that tells me so much about a person and who their favorite character is. But no, it's super exciting, and I love being my own boss. You know, the same as you. Like, you just feel so much yourself because you're working for yourself. You're doing your own passion projects, and yeah, it's just so fun.
I love it. I love it. So now we've been talking about identity. Your identity was in killer whales. Now, Hazel, how would you describe yourself?
I would just describe myself as I don't even know if I like doing that anymore.
Really?
You know, I can describe myself as like how I would do it on Instagram. Like, I'm someone who wants to inspire you. I'm a dreamer. Like, I want to achieve dreams. I want to help people achieve their dreams. You know, life is an adventure every single day. Like, act like it is.
Right.
But with regards to, you know, writing down who you are or attaching so much worth to one piece of who you are, I really tend to stay away from that now, because life is very fluid. You know, you never know what's going to happen, or you never know what's going to be taken away the next day. So I think it's healthier to just, it's strange to say like be yourself, but be all parts of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, down to the smallest part of yourself. Like, I'm a person that loves chocolate. Like, if I'm going to identify myself as that, I am a person who is
I love it.
Galaxy chocolate. That is who I am.
I love it.
You know, you are made up of so much more than, you know, you can go down to like your skin color, hair color, eye color, weight, you know, ethnicity, religion. You can identify yourself as all of that, or as how you relate to other people, or how you are as a job, or what talents you have, or what interests you have. There are millions of ways for you to identify yourself. So why the hell would you put yourself in a box?
Exactly. I love that.
So any trainers out there, you're so much more than just a trainer. You can be an amazing trainer. You're so much more.
Oh, I think that's such an incredible message. And I'm going to leave it at that, because that was just a note to go out on. Hazel, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. And I mean, selfishly, I like it because it was 30 minutes that I just get to talk to you. Yeah. But thank you so much for agreeing to share your voice and your background and your passions with this community that's listening right now. I do want to give you an opportunity to share all the ways that we can find you on the internet if people do want to connect with you. I will link everything that we talked about in the episode notes, so there'll be direct links there, but go for it.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me on, even if I did kind of force myself on you.
You did.
But yeah, it's just so nice to chat with a friend, and I'm so happy that this podcast is, you know, doing big things and people are listening, and you know, you deserve all of it because you work so hard. But yeah, you can find me. Instagram's probably the best place. It's at Dreaming with Hazel, and all of my links are in my bio. But if you want to go over to my YouTube, that's at Hazel Ch, which is Hazel with a TJE at the end. It's Dutch. It's Paul's nickname for me. But yeah, so you can find everything there. My blog is just Hazel McBride. You know, so yeah, Google will probably give you the results that you need.
Google it, you'll find it.
And all my books are available on Amazon.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. You are incredible. It is always a pleasure, and I'm so glad we did this.
Yay. Thank you so much, Manda.
Okay. Yay. And scene.